The city of New Avalon shimmered beneath a sky streaked with the last embers of sunset. Its towers, relics of a more hopeful age, cast long shadows over the bustling streets below. In the heart of the city, a crowd gathered in the old amphitheater, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of torches. The air was thick with anticipation and the scent of rain on stone. At the center of the crowd stood Mara, her cloak pulled tight against the chill. She scanned the faces around her, merchants, laborers, scholars, and soldiers, all drawn together by rumors of change. Whispers rippled through the assembly. Did you hear about the northern outposts? They say the council's grip is slipping. Rebels in the east, again. A hush fell as an old man, his beard silver and eyes sharp, stepped onto the dais. Citizens of New Avalon, he began, his voice carrying over the restless crowd. We stand at the edge of a new era. The council's decrees grow harsher, their enforcers more ruthless. But we are not powerless. Mara felt a surge of hope and fear. She glanced at her friend Elias, who nodded, his jaw set with determination. Around them, others murmured agreement, fists clenched in silent solidarity. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the edge of the crowd. Council guards, clad in black armor, pushed through, their batons raised. Disperse. This gathering is forbidden, one barked. The old man stood his ground. We will not be silenced, he declared as a stone flew from the crowd, striking a guard's helmet with a clang. Chaos erupted, shouts, the crack of batons, the stampede of feet. Mara grabbed Elias's hand, pulling him into the labyrinthine alleys as the city's first act of open defiance began. Mara and Elias darted through the narrow backstreets, their breath ragged. The city's ancient walls echoed with the sounds of pursuit. They ducked into a crumbling archway, pressing themselves against the cold stone as a patrol thundered past. Did you see the look on their faces? Elias whispered, a wild grin breaking through his fear. Mara managed a shaky laugh. I thought we were done for. We can't keep running forever. Elias's expression sobered. We won't have to. Not if we find the others. They made their way to the old market, now deserted except for a few shadowy figures. In a dimly lit alcove, they found Lyra, a former council scribe turned rebel. She greeted them with a nod, her eyes scanning the darkness. You made it, Lyra said. The city's waking up. There are more of us than you think. Mara glanced at the bundle in Lyra's arms. Leaflets, hastily printed, calling for resistance. We need to get these out before dawn, Lyra said. The council spies are everywhere. Elias took a stack. We'll cover the west quarter. As they parted, Mara caught Lyra's arm. Be careful. They're cracking down harder every day. Lyra smiled grimly. So are we. The night stretched ahead, filled with danger and possibility. Mara and Elias moved through the sleeping city, slipping leaflets under doors, into pockets, onto windowsills. Each act was a spark, a promise that the city's spirit had not been extinguished. Dawn broke over New Avalon, painting the city in pale gold. In the council's marble chambers, the mood was anything but serene. High Chancellor Varin paced before a row of grim-faced advisors, his robes swirling. Last night's riot cannot go unanswered, Varin snapped. We must restore order by any means necessary. An advisor, her voice trembling, replied, The people are restless, Chancellor. If we push too hard, Varin cut her off. We cannot show weakness. Double the patrols. Arrest anyone found distributing seditious materials. Make an example of the ringleaders. In the city below, the crackdown began. Guards swept through neighborhoods, dragging suspects from their homes. Mara and Elias narrowly avoided capture, hiding in a cellar as boots thundered overhead. We can't keep this up, Elias whispered, fear in his eyes that Mara's resolve hardened. We have to. If we give up now, everything we've done is for nothing. Outside, the city simmered with tension. Walls were plastered with council proclamations, but beneath them, the rebels' messages persisted. Hope scrawled in defiance. As the days passed, the resistance grew bolder. Mara and Elias joined a network of cells, each operating in secrecy. Messages were passed in coded notes, hidden in loaves of bread or sewn into clothing. One evening, Mara met with a contact in the shadow of the old cathedral. The contact, a wiry woman named Sarah, handed her a slip of paper. The council's planning a mass arrest tomorrow. They have a list. Mara's heart pounded. Who's on it? Sarah shook her head. Names change, but they're watching the market, the docks, the university. We have to warn everyone. Mara hurried through the city, slipping warnings to allies. At the university, she found Professor Halden, a quiet supporter of the cause. You must leave tonight, she urged. Halden nodded, his eyes sad. I've lived through worse, but this time I think we might win. As night fell, the city's rebels melted into the shadows, evading the council's net. The resistance was battered, but unbroken. Weeks passed. The city's mood shifted. Fear gave way to anger, and anger to action. Strikes erupted in the factories, students marched in the streets, and even some guards began to question their orders. Mara stood atop a rooftop, watching as a crowd gathered below. Elias joined her, his face alight with hope. It's happening, he said. They're not afraid anymore. A cheer rose from the crowd as Lyra appeared, leading a column of workers. Down with the council, they chanted. Suddenly, a line of guards blocked the street. For a moment, it seemed violence would erupt. But then, one guard lowered his baton and stepped aside. Others followed, their faces conflicted. The crowd surged forward, sweeping past the guards. Mara felt tears prick her eyes. We're winning, she whispered. But in the council chambers, Varen plotted his next move. If the city will not submit, he snarled, then we will remind them who holds the power. The council declared martial law. Curfews were imposed, food supplies rationed, and the city's gates sealed. Armed patrols roamed the streets, searching for rebels. Mara and her allies retreated to the catacombs beneath the city. There, by candlelight, they planned their next move. We can't outfight them, Lyra said, but we can outthink them. Elias spread a map on the table. The council's supply lines are vulnerable. If we cut them off, they'll have to negotiate. Mara nodded. We'll need help from the outside. Sarah has contacts in the neighboring towns. As the rebels prepared, the city above grew restless. Hunger gnawed at the people's resolve, but so did the memory of freedom. One night, Mara slipped through the sewers to meet Sarah at the city's edge. The towns are with us, Sarah whispered. They're ready to rise. Mara smiled, hope rekindled. Then let's finish this. At dawn, the city erupted. Bells rang from every tower, signaling the start of the uprising. Crowds surged into the streets, overwhelming the council's patrols. Barricades rose at every intersection, manned by workers, students, and even former guards. Mara led a group through the market, dodging arrows and smoke. Hold the line, she shouted as the council's forces advanced. Elias fought beside her, his face grim. We can't let them break through. Lyra appeared, bloodied but unbowed. The council's retreating to the palace. This is our chance. The rebels pressed forward, their numbers swelling. The city rang with the sound of battle and the cries of freedom. Eye in the palace. Varen watched the chaos unfold. Seal the gates, he ordered. We will not fall. But the city had already slipped from his grasp. The palace gates shuddered under the rebels' assault. Mara, Elias, and Lyra led the charge, their voices hoarse from shouting. Inside, the council huddled in fear. Advisors pleaded for mercy, but Varen refused to yield. We are the law, he roared. The doors burst open. Mara strode into the chamber, flanked by her allies. It's over, Varen, she said. The people have spoken. Varen glared, defiant to the end. You think you can rule? You'll tear this city apart. Mara shook her head. We'll build something better. Guards dragged Varen away. The council's banners were torn down, replaced by the symbols of the new order. Outside, the city erupted in celebration. Bells rang, fireworks lit the sky, and strangers embraced in the streets. Elias found Mara amid the revelry. We did it, he said, on his voice. Mara smiled, tears streaming down her face. No, Elias, we all did. In the days that followed, New Avalon began to heal. The rebels formed a provisional council, drawing representatives from every quarter of the city. Debates raged in the amphitheater, but for the first time, every voice was heard. Mara sat at the council table, exhausted but hopeful. "We have a chance to do things differently," she said. "No more secrets, no more fear." Lyra nodded. "We'll need new laws, new leaders. But most of all, we need trust." Elias grinned. "And maybe a little luck." The city's wounds were slow to mend. Some clung to the old ways, others demanded swift justice. But through it all, the spirit of the uprising endured. One evening, Mara walked the city's walls, watching the sun set over a city reborn. Children played in the streets, merchants reopened their stalls, and the bells rang out in peace. For the first time in years, hope blossomed in New Avalon. Years passed. The story of the uprising became legend, told around campfires and in crowded taverns. Mara, now older and wiser, watched as a new generation took up the mantle of leadership. Elias became a teacher, sharing the lessons of the past with eager students. Lyra led efforts to rebuild the city's shattered neighborhoods, her determination undimmed. The city faced new challenges: famine, floods, and the ever-present threat of tyranny. But the people of New Avalon stood together, united by the memory of what they had achieved. On the anniversary of the uprising, the city gathered in the amphitheater. Mara addressed the crowd, her voice steady. "We are the authors of our own destiny," she said. "Let us never forget the price of freedom, nor the power of hope." The crowd erupted in applause, their faces alight with pride. As the sun set over New Avalon, Mara smiled, content. The city's story was far from over, but for now, it was a story of hope, courage, and the unbreakable will of its people. The city's peace, hard-won and precious, was fragile. In the months after the anniversary, Mara noticed a change in the air, a subtle unease, a whisper that drifted through the alleys and markets. It began with rumors, strange lights on the horizon, travelers vanishing on the old northern road, livestock found dead with no sign of predator or disease. One evening, as Mara walked the city's edge with Elias, a distant boom echoed across the plains. The sky flickered with unnatural green. Elias stopped, his brow furrowed. "That's not a storm," he said quietly. Mara nodded, her mind racing. "We need to send scouts." The next morning, the council convened. Lyra, ever practical, brought a battered map to the table. "The disturbances are spreading. We've lost contact with 3 villages in the north." A young scout, breathless from his journey, burst into the chamber. "There's something out there," he gasped. "Shapes in the mist, machines, maybe, or something else." The council fell silent. Mara looked around at the faces, some skeptical, some afraid. "We can't ignore this," she said. "If the threat is real, we must understand it before it reaches our walls." Elias volunteered to lead the expedition. Mara gripped his hand before he left. "Be careful, and come back." He managed a reassuring smile. "Always." Elias and his team, 2 scouts, a healer, and a former engineer named Tomas, set out at dawn. The road north was choked with weeds and the remnants of old barricades. As they traveled, the signs of disturbance grew. Blackened earth, trees twisted into unnatural shapes, a silence so deep it pressed on their ears. On the 3rd day, they reached the first vanished village. Houses stood empty, doors swinging in the wind. The livestock pens were splintered, but there were no bodies, no blood, just absence. Tomas knelt by a strange mark in the dirt, a pattern of circles burned into the ground. "This isn't natural," he murmured that night. As they camped in the ruins, the mist rolled in, thick, cold, and humming with energy. Shapes moved at the edge of their vision, tall, angular, and silent. The healer clutched her talisman, whispering prayers. Elias gripped his spear. "We're being watched," he said at a low, mechanical whine filled the air. The team huddled together, eyes wide, as the mist pressed closer. Then, as suddenly as it came, the fog receded. The shapes vanished, leaving only the strange marks and a deepening sense of dread. "We need to warn New Avalon," Elias said, voice tight. This is only the beginning. Back in New Avalon, Mara waited anxiously for word. When Elias and his team staggered through the gates, she ran to meet them, relief and fear mingling in her chest. Elias recounted what they had seen. The council listened in stunned silence. Tomas laid out sketches of the patterns and the shapes in the mist. They're not like anything I've seen, he said. Not human, not animal, maybe machines, but alive. Debate erupted. Some counselors demanded immediate fortification of the city. Others argued for negotiation or retreat. Mara stood. We survived the council because we stood together. We must do the same now. We need to learn more, find out what these things want, and how to stop them. Lyra nodded. We'll need every resource, every ally. That night, Mara visited the old library, searching for any scrap of knowledge about the unknown threat. She found an ancient journal, its pages brittle. The author wrote of the others, beings who came in the mist, leaving only silence behind. Mara shivered. The past was not as distant as she had hoped. The city mobilized. Engineers reinforced the walls, smiths forged new weapons, and healers stockpiled herbs and medicines. Mara worked day and night, coordinating efforts and calming fears. Elias trained volunteers in spear and bow. We don't know what they are, he told the recruits, but we know how to fight together. Lyra organized scouts to watch the horizon. Tomas led a team to study the strange marks, hoping to find a weakness point one evening. As Mara walked the ramparts, she found herself joined by a young girl, Sam, the child who had not spoken since the old war. Sam handed Mara a drawing. The city, surrounded by mist, but with a bright sun above. Mara smiled, heart aching. Thank you, Sam. We'll keep the light burning. As the days passed, tension mounted. The mist drew closer each night, retreating with the dawn. People huddled in their homes, whispering prayers to gods old and new. But Mara refused to yield to fear. We survived before, she told the council. We will survive again. The attack came without warning. In the dead of night, the mist surged over the city walls, swallowing the outer wards. Alarms rang, and the defenders rushed to their posts. From the fog emerged the shapes, tall, jointed, their bodies gleaming with an unnatural light. They moved with silent purpose, ignoring arrows and stones. Where they passed, the air grew cold and heavy. Elias led a charge, spear in hand. Hold the line, he shouted. The defenders fought bravely, but their weapons glanced off the creature's armor. Tomas hurled a jar of oil, setting one of the shapes ablaze. It staggered, shrieked, a sound that froze the blood, and collapsed in a twisted metal. They can be hurt, Tomas yelled. The defenders rallied, using fire and ingenuity to drive the creatures back. By dawn, the mist receded, leaving behind smoldering wrecks and battered survivors. Mara surveyed the damage, exhaustion etched in her face. We survived, she said softly. But at what cost? The city mourned its dead, but hope flickered anew. The enemy was not invincible, and as long as hope remained, New Avalon would stand. The morning after the attack, New Avalon was a city of ghosts. Smoke drifted through the streets, and the wounded lined the cathedral steps, tended by weary healers. Mara moved among them, offering comfort where she could, her own wounds hidden beneath a veneer of resolve. Elias sat on the steps, cradling his arm in a bloodied sling. Mara knelt beside him. You should rest, she said softly. He shook his head. Later, we need to learn from this. The fire worked, but we lost too many. Lyra approached, her face set in grim determination. The engineers think they can make more firebombs. Tomas is working on traps, pits, spikes, anything to slow them down. Mara nodded. We need to be ready. They'll come again. A hush fell as Sam, the silent girl, approached carrying a small, twisted piece of metal. She handed it to Mara. The fragment was warm, etched with strange symbols that shimmered in the morning light. Tomas joined them, his eyes wide as he examined the fragment. This isn't just metal. It's something else. Maybe a key, or a message. Mara looked at the others. We need to understand them. If we can find out what they want, Maybe we can stop this war before it destroys us all. Tomas spent days in his workshop studying the fragment. He enlisted the help of Professor Halden, who had survived the council's fall and now taught at the new academy. Together, they pored over the symbols, comparing them to old texts and legends. One evening, Mara joined them. Tomas pointed to a sequence of markings. These aren't random. They're a pattern, maybe a language. Halden nodded. Some of these symbols match those in the old journal you found. Mara, the ones about the others. Mara leaned in, hope flickering. Can you translate it? Halden hesitated. It's not a warning. It's a request, or a plea. Return that which was taken. Restore the balance. Mara frowned. What do we take? What balance? Tomas shook his head. We need more information. If these things are trying to communicate, maybe we can find a way to talk back. Mara stood, resolve hardening. I'll go to the archives. If there's an answer, I'll find it. The city's archives were a labyrinth of stone and shadow, filled with the relics of centuries. Mara descended into the depths, lantern in hand, guided by the memory of old maps and whispered stories. She found the oldest records, parchments and tablets, some so fragile they crumbled at her touch. She read of ancient pacts, disasters, and a time when the city's founders bargained with forces beyond the world. One passage caught her eye. In a year of the long night, the founders sealed the gate and hid the key, lest the world be undone. The others will return, seeking what was lost. Mara's heart pounded. The fragment Sam had found. It was part of the key. She hurried back to the surface, the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. Mara called an emergency meeting of the council. She laid the fragment on the table and shared what she had learned. We're not just fighting invaders, she said. We're caught in the middle of something ancient. Our ancestors took something from the others. Now they want it back. Debate erupted. Some counselors demanded the key be destroyed. Others feared what would happen if it was returned. Elias spoke, his voice steady. We can't win this war by force. We need to try diplomacy. Find out what they want and why. Lyra nodded. We have to try. For the city. For the future. Mara looked around the table, seeing fear and hope in equal measure. Then it's decided. We'll seek out the others. We'll try to end this, together. A small delegation was chosen. Mara, Elias, Tomas, Lyra, and Sam. They carried the fragment, wrapped in cloth, and set out at dawn, following the old maps to the edge of the world. The journey was perilous. The land beyond the city was scarred by war and haunted by the mist. They moved carefully, avoiding the places where the others had left their marks. At night, they camped beneath the stars, sharing stories and fears. Sam, still silent, drew pictures in the dirt of the city, the mist, and a great door standing alone on a hill on the fourth day. They reached the place from the legend, a barren hill crowned by a stone archway, half buried in earth and time. The gate. Mara approached, heart pounding. The fragment in her pack grew warm, humming with energy. We're here, she whispered. Now what? Tomas examined the archway, finding a slot that matched the fragment. With trembling hands, Mara fitted the piece into place. The air shimmered. The mist thickened, and from the other side of the gate, shapes began to emerge, tall and silent, their eyes glowing with alien light. Mara stepped forward, raising her hands in peace. We've come to return what was taken, she said. The shapes paused, watching, and then, in a voice like wind through stone, they spoke. Restore the balance. Open the way. The fate of New Avalon, and perhaps the world, hung in the balance. The mist swirled around the gate, thickening until Mara could barely see her own outstretched hands. The others stood motionless, their eyes, if they were eyes, glowing with shifting colors, unreadable and ancient. Elias gripped Mara's shoulder. What do we do now? He whispered. Mara steadied her breath. We listen. Tomas, his hands shaking, withdrew a notebook and began sketching the symbols he saw pulsing along the other's limbs. Lyra kept her bow lowered but ready, eyes darting between the shapes and the archway. One of the others stepped forward, raising an appendage that shimmered with the same markings as the fragment. In the silence, Sam, small and quiet, walked forward, holding out her own drawing. The creature knelt, lowering its head to her level that a sound, melodic and mournful, filled the air. The symbols on the gate and the fragment glowed in response. Mara felt a pressure in her mind, a sense of words forming not in her ears, but in her thoughts. You are not the ones who took, but you hold the key. The wound must be healed. Mara swallowed. How do we heal it? The other's color shifted. Restore what was sealed. Return the memory. Balance will bring peace. Tomas looked up, realization dawning. The key isn't just a thing. It's knowledge. It's history. They want us to remember what happened. Lyra frowned. But what if remembering is what brings them back? Mara shook her head. We can't move forward by hiding from the past. She turned to the others. We're ready. Show us. The others formed a circle around the gate. The air vibrated with energy as the fragment in the archway pulsed, sending ripples of light across the stone. Mara, Elias, Lyra, Tomas, and Sam stood together, bracing themselves as a vision washed over them. Memories not their own. They saw ancient New Avalon, long before the city's founding, when the land was wild and the sky burned with strange auroras. The founders, desperate and afraid, made a pact with the others. In exchange for safety and knowledge, they sealed away a part of the world's memory, a fragment of time itself, within the gate. But the pact was broken. The memory was hidden, and the city prospered while the world around it suffered. The others, guardians of balance, had waited, watching as the wound festered. The vision faded. Mara staggered, tears streaking her face. We stole their future to save our own. Elias steadied her. Can we fix it? The other's voice echoed in their minds. Restore the memory. Open the gate. The world will heal, but change will come. Lyra looked at Mara. If we do this, everything could change. The city, our lives, Mara nodded. But if we don't, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. She reached for the fragment, ready to turn it in the archway. The wind howled as Mara's fingers closed around the fragment. The others watched, silent and expectant. Behind her, Tomas whispered, Are we ready for this? Sam stepped forward, her hand small and warm in Mara's. For the first time, she spoke, her voice clear and strong. We have to try. Elias nodded. Whatever happens, we face it together. Mara turned the fragment. The gate shuddered, light spilling through the cracks. The air grew thick with possibility, fear, hope, and the weight of centuries that a voice, ancient and many, echoed from the gate. Do you accept the burden of memory? Will you restore what was lost? Mara looked at her friends, then at the others. We accept. The gate flared, engulfing them in light. When the light faded, Mara found herself standing in a city both familiar and strange. New Avalon's towers gleamed, but the streets were lined with trees and the air was sweet with the scent of wildflowers. People moved through the city, their faces open and curious, unburdened by fear. The others stood at the city's edge, watching. Mara felt the memory of the past, its pain and its hope, woven into the stones beneath her feet. Elias squeezed her hand. We did it. Tomas looked around, awestruck. It's like the city remembered what it was meant to be. Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. We all did. Sam laughed, her voice ringing like a bell. The people of New Avalon gathered, drawn by the change. Mara stepped forward, raising her voice. We have restored the balance. Our city is whole, but we must remember the cost and the promise. We are not alone in this world. We are its stewards, its memory keepers. The others bowed, their colors bright with approval. You have chosen well. The wound is healed. The future is yours. As the sun rose over the remade city, Mara knew their journey was only beginning. But for the first time, hope was not just a memory. It was the promise of tomorrow. The days that followed were filled with wonder and uncertainty. New Avalon, transformed by the restoration of memory, pulsed with new life. The city's walls, once symbols of fear and separation, now stood open, inviting the world beyond to enter and share in the healing. Mara awoke each morning to the sound of laughter and music drifting through the windows of her modest home. Children played in the sunlit plazas, their games echoing the ancient stories that had returned to the city's consciousness. The old wounds of war, betrayal, and loss were not forgotten, but woven into the tapestry of daily life as lessons, not curses. Elias found himself drawn to the city's edge, where the others lingered like silent sentinels. He approached one, its form shimmering in the morning light. "Will you stay?" he asked. The other's response resonated in his mind. "We are part of the balance now. We will watch and guide, but not rule. This world is yours to shape." Tomas and Lyra led teams into the wilds beyond the city, seeking out the lost villages and inviting their people to return. Some were wary, memories of the mist and the old wars still fresh. But as word spread of New Avalon's renewal, hope blossomed in distant hearts. Sam, whose voice had broken the silence at the gate, became a symbol of the city's rebirth. She painted murals on the walls, images of the gate, the others, and the unity of all living things. Her art drew crowds, inspiring conversations about the past and dreams for the future. Yet, not all was easy in this new era. The restoration of memory brought with it the weight of old grievances and the pain of truths long buried. Some citizens struggled with guilt for the actions of their ancestors. Others resented the changes, longing for the certainty of the old ways that in the council chamber. Debates grew heated. "We cannot forget the past, but we must not be chained by it," Mara insisted during one session. "Let us use our knowledge to build bridges, not walls." A merchant named Dallin stood, his voice trembling. "But what if the others change their minds? What if they take back what they've given?" Elias answered calmly, "Trust is a risk, but so is fear. We survive by trusting each other. Now we must trust the world." Tomas proposed a festival to celebrate the city's renewal and to honor the pact with the others. "Let us show we are not afraid to remember," he said. The festival was approved, but Mara sensed the undercurrents of doubt. She knew that healing was a journey, not a destination. Preparation for the Festival of Balance transformed the city. Lanterns shaped like the gate, and the others hung from every window. Musicians practiced ancient songs rediscovered in the archives, and bakers experimented with recipes from long-lost villages that on the day of the festival, the city's plazas overflowed with people, citizens, villagers, and even a few cautious travelers from beyond the horizon. The others moved among them, silent but present, their forms shifting in time with the music. Mara stood on a dais in the main square, Sam and the council by her side. She addressed the crowd. "Today, we celebrate not just our survival, but our willingness to face the truth. The gate has shown us that the past and future are woven together. Let us honor the balance by living with open hearts." As the sun set, the city was bathed in golden light. Sam unveiled her latest mural, a vast tree whose roots embraced the gate and whose branches reached toward the stars. The crowd gasped in awe, and even the others paused, their colors brightening in approval. That night, Mara wandered the quiet streets, reflecting on how far they had come. She knew challenges remained, but for the first time, she felt truly at peace. With the city united, Mara and the council turned their attention outward. The wild lands beyond New Avalon still bore scars of the old war and the unknown threat. Tomas led expeditions to clear the ruins and plant new gardens, while Lyra negotiated alliances with neighboring settlements. Elias established a school where children learned not only to read and write, but also the history of the gate and the importance of balance. Sam taught art, her gentle presence encouraging even the most withdrawn students to express themselves. One afternoon, as Mara visited the school, she watched Sam guide a group of children in painting a mural. "Why do we paint the others?" a boy asked. Sam smiled. "So we remember they are part of us, just as we are part of them. The world is bigger than our fears." Mara felt a surge of pride. The next generation was growing up unafraid, their hearts open to wonder and difference, but not all was tranquil. Scouts reported strange phenomena in the far north. Lights in the sky, whispers in the wind. The council debated what to do, but Mara insisted. We must not hide from the unknown. We face it together. A delegation was formed to investigate the northern mysteries. Mara, Elias, Lyra, Tomas, and Sam, joined by two young scouts eager to prove themselves. They journeyed beyond the city's reach, through forests reborn and valleys still haunted by the past. At night, they camped beneath the auroras, sharing stories and hopes. Lyra confided in Mara, "I used to think survival meant hiding. Now I see it means reaching out." On the seventh day, they reached a plateau where the air shimmered with energy. Tomas set up instruments, while Sam sketched the swirling lights. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A fissure opened, and from it emerged a figure, neither human nor other, but something in between. Its eyes glowed with the memory of the gate. Mara stepped forward, unafraid. "Who are you?" The figure's voice was a chorus of many. "I am the bridge, the past and future made flesh. The world is changing, and you must choose your path." Elias asked, "What must we do?" The figure smiled. "Learn, grow, and remember, balance is not the end, but the beginning." The delegation returned to New Avalon, forever changed. They shared their encounter with the council and the people, sparking new debates and dreams. Mara realized that the restoration of memory was not a final act, but an invitation to continual growth. The city would face new mysteries, new challenges, and new joys. As the seasons turned, New Avalon flourished. The others remained silent guardians, the bridge being visited often, sharing wisdom and guiding the city's leaders. Sam's murals grew ever more beautiful, chronicling the city's journey. Tomas and Lyra led expeditions to distant lands, forging bonds with people once thought lost. And Mara, standing atop the city's highest tower, watched the sun rise over a world renewed. She knew the future would not be easy, but she welcomed it with open arms. For in the heart of New Avalon, hope and memory walked hand in hand, and the story of survival became the story of life itself.